Here's something most car review channels won't tell you. Consumer Reports surveys roughly 300,000 vehicle owners every single year. Real owners, people who have already spent their money, dealt with the dealership, driven through 2 winters, and lived with whatever problems showed up. And when you actually dig into that data, not the press release version, the full reliability and owner satisfaction breakdowns, 7 SUVs keep separating themselves from everything else on the market. Not because they're the flashiest, not because they won some award at an auto show, because their owners keep saying the same thing: "I'd buy it again." That's the number that actually matters when you're about to spend $40, $50, maybe $70,000. So today, we're going through all 7. We're going to talk about what each one gets right, where it still has rough edges, and which one belongs at the top of your list depending on what you actually need. Stay with me until the end, because the number 1 pick is going to surprise a lot of people, and I'll explain exactly why. Let's get into it. We're starting at number 7 with the Subaru Forester, and I want to be upfront about something right away. The Forester gets overlooked constantly because it doesn't look exciting. It's boxy. It's practical. It doesn't have a turbocharged trim that gets written up in car magazines. But Consumer Reports gave it a reliability score of 82 out of 100, and in the compact SUV category, that puts it at number 1 in its class, beating out 26 other vehicles. That's not a small thing. Here's what the Forester actually does well. Symmetrical all-wheel drive comes standard on every single trim level. You don't have to pay extra for it. You don't have to upgrade to get it. It's just there. For anyone buying in the northern US, Canada, or the UK, that matters more than most people realize when they're cross-shopping in a showroom. Fuel economy sits at 26 in the city and 33 on the highway for the base engine. For a true all-wheel drive vehicle with this much interior headroom, those are solid numbers. Cargo space is genuinely impressive for the class. You get more usable vertical space inside the Forester than almost anything else at this price point, which matters if you have dogs, strollers, or gear that doesn't fold flat. The EyeSight Driver Assistance Package, which includes automatic pre-collision braking, adaptive cruise control, and lane centering, has been on this vehicle for longer than most competitors have even offered it as an option. Subaru was doing this in 2015, when other brands were still treating it as a luxury add-on. Where does it fall short? The infotainment system is behind. The interior materials on lower trims feel dated, and the CVT transmission isn't the most satisfying thing to drive. It's smooth, but it has that rubber band sensation that some owners find annoying on highway on-ramps. Starting around $30,000 for a well-equipped trim, the Forester is genuinely hard to argue against if you prioritize safety ratings, real-world reliability data, and total cost of ownership over 5 years. Number 6 is the Toyota Highlander, and this one is specifically for buyers who need 3 rows and refuse to compromise on long-term dependability. Consumer Reports has given the Highlander a predicted reliability score of 5 out of 5 in multiple recent model years. That's their highest rating. Not 4, not 4.5, 5. For a 3-row, 8-passenger SUV with this much complexity, that's genuinely rare. The hybrid version is where this vehicle becomes a serious conversation. The Highlander Hybrid has been on the market since 2005, which means Toyota has had almost 20 years to sort out the powertrain. The current version gets around 36 miles per gallon combined. For a vehicle that seats 8 people and has enough cargo space for a family trip, that fuel economy number is almost absurd. There's no competitor in this segment that gets anywhere close to that without significant compromises somewhere else. Owner satisfaction scores are high, particularly among people who purchase the hybrid. The pattern you see in the owner survey data is consistent. People buy this car for their family, they keep it for 8 or 9 years, and when they trade it in, they buy another one. That kind of repeat purchase behavior tells you something real about what ownership actually feels like. Now, it's not perfect. The Highlander's interior, especially on base and LE trims, uses materials that feel a bit cheap for a vehicle that starts around $38,000. The third row is tight for adults. It's fine for kids, but if you're regularly carrying 6 adults, you'll want to look at something longer. And some owners have reported that the infotainment screen response can be sluggish. But the core question for most 3-row buyers is, will this thing still be running well at 150,000 miles? The Highlander's answer to that question is stronger than almost any other vehicle in its class. Number 5 is the Kia Telluride, and this one has an interesting story. When the Telluride launched in 2020, the expectation was that it would be a budget alternative to the Highlander and Palisade, a 3-row SUV that was priced attractively but couldn't really compete with the established players on quality. That's not what happened. The Telluride won Motor Trend's SUV of the Year in 2020. It won it again in 2021. Consumer Reports gave it a predicted reliability rating of 5 out of 5. J.D. Power gave it a reliability score of 83 out of 100 in its class, which is above average. And when you look at the owner satisfaction surveys, about 66% of Telluride owners rate their experience 5 stars, which is a genuinely high number for a vehicle that hadn't even existed for 5 years at the time those surveys were conducted. So what actually makes it good? The interior is the starting point. For a vehicle that starts around $37,000, the Telluride has cabin materials and a layout that feel more like a $50,000 vehicle. The second row in particular is exceptionally comfortable, wider than the Highlanders, with more legroom. If you're buying this for a family where the adults regularly use the second row, this is a meaningful difference. The 3.8-liter V6 engine makes 291 horsepower and uses an 8-speed automatic transmission. No CVT, no turbocharged small engine that's trying to compensate. Just a smooth, predictable powertrain that owners consistently describe as confident and quiet. Towing capacity reaches up to 5,000 pounds when properly equipped, which puts it ahead of most competitors in this segment. The reliability data across the first few years of ownership has been encouraging, and Kia's 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty backs up the purchase in a way that Toyota and Honda simply don't match. The resale value has improved significantly since launch. Early Tellurides were selling above MSRP at dealerships during the supply shortage period, which is either a positive sign of demand or a reason to be patient about when you buy, depending on your timing. Number 4 is the Hyundai Palisade, and I want to address something immediately. Yes, the Palisade and the Telluride share the same platform, the same engine, and the same transmission. They're built at the same plant in Georgia. If that's new information for you, you're not alone. A lot of buyers don't realize just how similar these two vehicles are under the skin. So why are they ranked separately? Because they're not identical, and the differences matter depending on what you're looking for. The Palisade is slightly longer than the Telluride. That extra length shows up in a more usable third row. It's still not ideal for tall adults on long trips, but it's a step up from what most 3-row competitors are offering. The second-row captain's chairs in certain trims have a reclining function and a ventilation feature that the Telluride doesn't offer. J.D. Power gave the Palisade a reliability score of 81 out of 100, and Consumer Reports rates it at 4 out of 5 for predicted reliability. Slightly behind the Telluride in the data, but still solidly above average for the segment. The interior design takes a different direction than the Telluride. Some people prefer the Palisade's layout. Others prefer the Telluride's. This is genuinely a personal preference call. If you're cross-shopping these two, drive both back-to-back and pay attention to which dashboard and seating position feels more natural to you. Starting around $35,000 for the base trim, the Palisade represents strong value for a 3-row SUV with this quality level. The calligraphy trim, the top of the range, gets you leather, a 12.3-inch infotainment display, and a second-row center console that genuinely feels like a luxury vehicle feature. One thing worth knowing, both the Palisade and Telluride have seen some reports of screen flickering and infotainment glitches in certain model years. It's not universal, but it's worth checking the specific model year you're considering on the NHTSA complaints database before you sign anything. Number 3 is the Mazda CX-5, and this one tends to surprise people who have written Mazda off as a second-tier brand. Here's the reliability history first. Consumer Reports has rated the CX-5 at 4.5 out of 5 or higher for reliability consistently since 2013. That's over a decade of above-average reliability data. J.D. Power scores have hovered between 80 and 85 out of 100, depending on the model year. Average annual maintenance costs come in around $447, which is meaningfully lower than most competitors in the compact SUV segment. The severe repair probability, meaning a repair that's serious enough to take the vehicle off the road for an extended period, sits at around 8% in the first few years of ownership. For context, the segment average is closer to 11 to 12%. That gap adds up over 5 years. But what makes the CX-5 genuinely different is what happens when you sit inside it. Mazda has been on a deliberate campaign for about a decade to build vehicles that feel more premium than their price suggests. The CX-5's interior uses materials, stitching, and design proportions that most people associate with vehicles that cost $10,000 or $15,000 more. The seats are comfortable for long drives. The steering is direct and weighted in a way that actually gives you confidence. The sound insulation is noticeably better than the Forester or the RAV4. 2 engine options, the standard 2.5-liter 4-cylinder and the turbocharged version that makes 256 horsepower. The turbo version is genuinely quick, though some owners have noted it can feel thirsty if you're regularly pressing on the accelerator. The base engine gets up to 31 miles per gallon on the highway, which is competitive. The CX-5 is a 2-row compact SUV, so if you need 3 rows, this isn't your vehicle. But for buyers who don't need that 3rd row and want the best combination of reliability, interior quality, and driving experience in the $30,000 to $40,000 range, the CX-5 makes a very strong case. One honest limitation: the infotainment system uses a rotary controller rather than a touchscreen interface when the vehicle is moving, which some buyers adapt to quickly and others find genuinely frustrating. Test it before you buy. Number 2 is the Toyota RAV4. And I want to be specific here because not all RAV4s are created equal, and the data reflects that. The RAV4 is the best-selling SUV in the United States. That's not a small thing. When a vehicle sells in those volumes, the reliability data becomes extremely reliable. There are hundreds of thousands of owner reports feeding into Consumer Reports' annual survey, which means the numbers are statistically robust. And what those numbers consistently show is a predicted reliability score that ranks among the top vehicles in the compact SUV class. Year after year, owners regularly report passing 200,000 miles without significant mechanical issues. That's not just anecdote. Toyota's reputation for powertrain longevity is backed by independent market data on resale values. RAV4s at 100,000 miles hold more of their original value than almost any competitor in the segment. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The RAV4 Hybrid deserves to be treated as a separate conversation from the standard RAV4, because in a lot of ways, it's actually the better vehicle. It gets around 38 miles per gallon combined in real-world driving. It makes more horsepower than the standard version, 219 versus 203. It has an electric motor driving the rear wheels independently, which means it effectively has all-wheel drive without a traditional mechanical connection. And Consumer Reports has rated the RAV4 Hybrid's reliability higher than the standard version in several recent surveys. Starting around $32,000 for the standard model and approximately $34,000 for the hybrid, the price difference between these two is smaller than most people expect. If you're buying a RAV4 and plan to keep it for 7 or more years, the hybrid math usually works in your favor. Safety ratings are strong. Standard Toyota Safety Sense on every trim includes automatic emergency braking, lane departure warning, adaptive cruise, and automatic high beams. The interior is functional and practical. It is not luxurious. The materials on mid-range trims are adequate but unremarkable. If interior quality is your priority, the Mazda CX-5 does it better at a similar price point. But if maximum long-term reliability and resale value are your priorities, the RAV4 is the most consistent answer in the compact segment. And number 1 is the Honda CR-V. I said this would surprise some people, so let me explain the reasoning. The CR-V is not the most exciting vehicle on this list. It doesn't have the interior quality of the CX-5, it doesn't have the 3-row option of the Highlander, and it doesn't have the curb appeal of the Telluride. What it has is a 25-year history of being one of the most consistently reliable compact SUVs ever built, and a current generation that has cleaned up the issues that made the previous generation problematic. Here's the important context. The 2017 and 2018 CR-V turbocharged models had a documented oil dilution issue in cold climates where fuel was mixing with the engine oil under certain driving conditions. If you're looking at used CR-Vs, be aware of that specific model year range. Honda acknowledged the issue. The current generation, 2023 and 2024, does not have that problem, and reliability scores have returned to the CR-V's historically strong levels. J.D. Power reliability scores and Consumer Reports data both place the current CR-V at 82 out of 100, with a predicted reliability rating of 4 out of 5. Average annual maintenance costs sit around $407. The severe repair probability is low, and the number of owners who report their vehicle running smoothly past 200,000 miles is consistently high in owner surveys. The CR-V Hybrid is where the value proposition becomes particularly strong. It gets around 38 to 40 miles per gallon in real-world mixed driving, uses Honda's proven 2-motor hybrid system, and starts around $34,000. For buyers who do a lot of city driving or frequent stop-and-go commutes, the hybrid pays for its premium relatively quickly. Cargo space is excellent for the class, up to 69.8 cubic feet with the rear seats folded. The rear seat has a genuinely flat fold, which makes it more useful than competitors whose folded seats still have an angle. The back seat has more legroom than the RAV4, which matters if you regularly carry adult passengers. Resale value is exceptional. 5-year resale retention for the CR-V consistently ranks among the top 3 or 4 vehicles in the entire SUV segment, not just compact SUVs. That means when you go to sell or trade in, you lose less money than you would with most alternatives. So why number 1? Because when you combine the reliability history, the maintenance cost data, the resale value retention, the cargo utility, and the efficiency of the hybrid system, the CR-V's total cost of ownership, over 7 to 10 years, is among the lowest of any SUV on this list. For a buyer who wants to make one smart purchase and not think about it again for a decade, the CR-V makes that argument more completely than any other vehicle here. So there they are. 7 SUVs that consistently hold up when you look at the actual ownership data. Not the manufacturer talking points, not the press fleet reviews, but what real owners report after 2, 4, 6 years of driving. The CX-5 wins on interior quality and driving feel. The Highlander wins on 3-row reliability. The Telluride wins on value and interior space. And the CR-V wins on the full picture of long-term ownership cost. Here's what I want to know from you. Which one of these is on your short list right now? And what's the one thing that's stopping you from pulling the trigger? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and a lot of the time, other people in the comments section have owned exactly what you're considering and can tell you what the brochure won't. If this was useful, hit subscribe. We do this kind of research-first breakdown every week, and the next video is going to cover something most buyers completely miss when they're comparing reliability scores across brands. You'll want to see that one before you sign anything.